I'm so glad that you have come back to listening to Talking with Tad. We have an incredible guest speaker today, but before we get there, I have a challenge for each one of you. I need you to go out and vote on Tuesday, October 13th. It's right here. Can you believe it? It is on top of us. Early voting starts. You need to get to the polls on Tuesday. And if you don't make it then, go the next day. But the challenge is not just for you to be there. Take your family, take your friends, take your neighbors, get to the polls. We need each and every one of you to vote because it really does make a difference. And you're going to vote every single Republican. This time, and I know you've heard it a lot, but we're going to tell you over and over again, you have to vote every single race, and you have to vote for the Republican. Start at the top of the ticket with our president and continue on down. But today you have an opportunity to meet another justice, to be able to find out who he is and share about him and the excitement about him and how you can connect and be able to get more people to vote for our guest speaker today. And that guest speaker is Justice Brett Busby. Now, I'm really excited about him coming. I just saw him the other day in Comfort, Texas. And you know, that's where his dad lives, is in Comfort. And I'm in Kendall County, which is in Bernie, just right down the road. So I have a special connection to our judge. And I just can't wait for you to meet him and hear his story. So, Judge, would you tell us a little bit about you? What drove you? How did you decide to become an attorney? And then how did you take the next step in deciding to run for office? So please share your story with me and all of our listeners.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation, Tony Ann. It's great to be with you. And hello, everybody. My name is Brett Busby. I'm a justice on the Texas Supreme Court and was appointed last year by Governor Abbott to the court, and have been serving you on the court for about a year and a half now, and am running for my first full term. And so I'm delighted to be with you today to talk a little bit about me and my background and to ask for your vote. So just a little bit about me. I'm a 7th generation Texan, 3rd generation Eagle Scout. Grew up in Austin and Amarillo. And my inspiration to go to law school was my mother. She is a lawyer and was the only woman to graduate in her law school class from St. Mary's in 1971. And a time when there really weren't a lot of opportunities for women in the legal profession. And she couldn't get a job when she graduated. And so she drafted bills for the legislature for a year. And then I was born. And after I started to school, she found a more senior established female attorney who took her in and taught her about trust and estates work and estate and gift tax. And she really succeeded in that by outworking everybody and just her thorough preparation. And sometimes people would underestimate her, and she would really use that to her advantage. And she ended up litigating cases in federal tax court, and she never lost a case because she was so prepared and just worked so hard at it to be the best lawyer out there. And I was really inspired by that. She used to have me read her briefs when I was in high school. And so I decided that I wanted to be a tax litigator like my mom. And so I went to undergraduate school at Duke University and got my degree there in public policy, and then went on to law school at Columbia. And when I was there, I took a lot of tax classes, but one of my professors said, you know, you should really think about being a law clerk for a federal judge, for a federal court of appeals judge. That would be good experience for you going into tax litigation. And I thought, okay, you know, it's an opportunity to do some public service before I start on my private practice career. And so I'll give that a try. And I was so fortunate to get two wonderful mentors. First, Judge Jerry Choflat, for whom I worked for a year on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit in Jacksonville, Florida. And then I was very blessed to be hired by Justice Byron White at the U.S. Supreme Court and to serve as a law clerk there for a year. And that's where I met my wife, Erin, who was a law clerk for another justice the same year. So it was a wonderful year for me and for us, both personally and professionally, to have an opportunity to serve there in Washington. And it was, I really discovered that I really enjoyed appellate work, partly because I enjoy the research and the writing that goes into preparing the written arguments, the briefs that are given to the court, and also the style of oral arguments that we do on presenting the case to the court and allowing the justices to ask questions. I really enjoyed that sort of work, but also really found the variety very interesting because it's all sorts of different areas of law. You get to really be a generalist, which is very rare these days in the law. And so I discovered that real interest in appellate work. And when I finished at the court, decided to come back to Texas and start my law practice. And I started in Houston in 2000 and specialized in appeals, arguing cases in front of the Texas Supreme Court and other courts around the state and around the country, including one case I got to argue later in the U.S. Supreme Court.
Nice.
And Erin and I got married. She moved down to Texas as well. And we have two wonderful kids, Katie and Will. And we made our home in Houston basically for 20 years. And I built a successful appellate practice there, became a partner at the Bracewell firm there doing appellate work, and had a really great life and was very satisfied with my career. But my parents always taught me to find opportunities to be of use. And so I also had some experiences by that time with judges on the cases that I worked on, where I felt like they weren't really focused in on what the proper role of a judge was. Sometimes I felt like they would just decide who they thought should win and then figure out a way to get there, regardless of the way that the reasons that the parties were giving, the arguments that the parties were making in the case. Or they would have an agenda to try to push the law or change the law in a particular direction instead of just applying the law as it is written fairly to everybody that comes before the court. And so I griped one too many times to Erin about that. And she said, why don't you do something about it? So I did. And I ran for the Court of Appeals. There was an open seat on the State Court of Appeals in Houston in 2012. And I had been a Republican precinct chair in Houston. And so had a network of people that was encouraging me to run and was able to get some great endorsements and help from people all around the 10-county district. And ended up in the end not having a primary opponent, although I had started with some other primary opponents, but was able to really consolidate some great support, both from the political community and from the bar, the other lawyers in Houston and the business community. And so ended up being the Republican nominee for that seat on the Court of Appeals. And then my predecessor, who wasn't running again on the court, ended up retiring early. So Governor Perry ended up appointing me to that seat a few months early, and I was able to run as an incumbent in 2012 and win a 6-year term on the Court of Appeals. And that's what started my public service. And I was there for 6 years. And then came the 2018 election. And as probably most of our listeners know, it was a wave election. And with straight ticket voting, most of our Court of Appeals judges, incumbents in the big metropolitan areas, lost their seats because of the straight ticket voting. And in Harris County, for example, over 75% of the people that voted did a one-punch straight ticket, so they never saw my name. And because Beto O'Rourke did so well, it just wiped us all out down the ballot. Yeah. We lost 7 centuries of judicial experience across the state of Texas in that election.
7 centuries?
It's amazing, isn't it?
That was a rough year, wasn't it? It was a rough year.
It was, but I feel so blessed to have had this opportunity. And who would have thought that for me to get my dream job on the Supreme Court, the last thing that would happen before that was for me to lose my election to the Court of Appeals. So God had a plan for what was next for me, and I feel very fortunate for that. And it was just very shortly after that a vacancy came up on the Texas Supreme Court.
Well, as we know, some doors close and other doors open. We don't know why that door closed, but obviously there, as you just said, there was a plan, no question about that the good Lord said, you're going a different direction. And now we're going to have you run now this time. And tell me, what is your plan? How have you been getting out to meet the people or to reach the people? It's a little tough meeting them because of the COVID, right? So how have you been doing that? And where can they find out about you?
Well, it is tough meeting people, but we're doing a lot on social media, and we are doing smaller gatherings, outdoors and that sort of thing to meet people, like the one that we did recently, where I got to see you in
Right.
Comfort and in the Hill Country with some family and friends there, and so it was great to get their help to get energized for the last few weeks. So we are doing a few small events, but mainly we're doing candidate forums and social media online. And Zoom has really shown it, you can take advantage of it in a lot of different ways, and you need to be creative to get your message out. One thing that we did this summer was we actually did a virtual campaign concert on Zoom.
Really?
I'm a violinist and have played since I was very young, and my wife is a pianist, Erin. And so we played a piece together, and then I've served for many years on the board of the Houston Symphony, and some of the musicians there wanted to help with my campaign. So they also played some music for that concert, and it was just a great way to connect with supporters all across the state and provide a little music during an challenging year, and also share a little bit about the campaign. So we've been trying to do some creative things like that, Tony.
And that is very creative, and I love that. So I take it as they see the slide that has your information, can they go to your website, and is that posted on your website, that little concert that you had?
We're actually going to be posting some excerpts from that soon on social media.
Oh, cool.
And but yes, you can go to my website and get more information about the campaign, and I definitely encourage you to do that. We've got some videos up there with some information from my investiture that I had last year, and Governor Abbott, who nominated me for the court, came and spoke. And then I was very honored that Justice Neil Gorsuch from the U.S. Supreme Court actually came and swore me in.
That was impressive.
Last year. He's also a former Justice White law clerk, and that's how we met. And,
that's how you had that connection. Well, I love all of that, and I think that's what's important, is people to go in and go to your website, to sign up to endorse you once they have learned about you and your experience that you have. But one thing before we wrap all this up, and had to remind them again and again that they've got to go vote on Tuesday. We can't forget about that fun fact. It's a time that we're starting, we are at the end of our interview. So do you have something fun to share with us today?
Sure. Well, I was going to share about playing the violin. It's something I started when I was 3 years old. My parents took me to a Sunday afternoon youth symphony concert, and I told them I wanted to play the violin. I pointed up to the stage, and so they found somebody for me to take lessons from, and I've been playing ever since. And I actually have had an opportunity to play with some really interesting people over the years. Our Chief Justice, Nathan Hecht, is a wonderful pianist. And so he and I have played together some since I came to the court, which has been a lot of fun. And then when I was at the U.S. Supreme Court, thanks to Justice O'Connor, I got to play some very rare violins, a Stradivarius and a Guarneri, that were borrowed from, these are the violins that the virtuosos play on. So it was, I've had some real wonderful experiences just through music and my legal career over the years. And so we will be posting soon some information from our concert. And also there are great posts on Facebook and Twitter, just with me talking a little bit about my background and experience, why I was able to have, the record of being an experienced appellate attorney and a fair judge, and that I was confirmed unanimously by the Texas Senate, by every Democrat and Republican, based on my record. And so there are little things like that.
So there's no question that you have that personality that when you see something, you go after it. So at the age of 3 to be a violinist, I can't wait to see that. When it's posted, I want to be able to hear you play and to experience it, especially with all your friends. And back to all of you that are listening, that have had the opportunity to now meet the judge, to know who he is, know that you can share some personal stories about him. This is now the time for you to go and share with people. Go to the polls on Tuesday, October 13th. and that we have 3 weeks of early voting. But remember, vote. You have to vote every single race, and you need to vote for our Republican. And we want to vote for Justice Brett Busby so that he is getting every vote out there, and all the challenges, at least 3, I want you to take. You know, not just those Republican friends, those neighbors that are maybe the independents. You need to get them out there to vote for our people that are principled, who you just met. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Judge, thank you for participating. That was an incredible interview, and I look forward to November 4th to celebrate your win.
Well, thank you so much, Tony Ann. I appreciate the opportunity and all that you do for Texas. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to listen. And remember to vote Justice Brett Busby for Supreme Court Place 8. Thank you so much.